I never thought the last conversation with my parents would happen in a restaurant, but I suppose they always did prefer public scenes when they wanted to humiliate me without causing too much of a spectacle. My mother's voice was cold and measured when she said the words that would change everything. "We're done pretending you're part of this family, Rebecca. You've embarrassed us for the last time." My father didn't even look up from his phone. My brother Marcus smirked into his wine glass. And just like that, over-expensive pasta I could barely afford and champagne I didn't order, my family disowned me because I chose to become a teacher instead of climbing the corporate ladder they'd built for me in their minds. But here's what they didn't know that night. I was already changing lives in ways they couldn't measure with their bank statements and country club memberships. And in exactly 18 months, the governor would call my name in front of thousands of people, and my parents would be watching from the audience, their faces frozen in shock. This is the story of how I went from being the family disappointment to the woman who proved that success isn't always about money and revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just living well enough that the truth becomes impossible to ignore. It started 5 years before that awful dinner when I was 27 and working at my father's firm as a junior analyst. I hated every single day. The spreadsheets, the corporate politics, the fake smiles. It all felt so hollow. My mother would call every Sunday asking about promotions. My father would send emails about networking opportunities. Marcus would text pictures of his new car or corner office, always with comments about keeping up with the family standard. But I kept remembering this moment from when I was 16. I'd volunteered to tutor kids at a community center, and this girl named Maria finally finished her first chapter book. The look on her face, the pure joy and pride. I'd felt more fulfilled in that moment than in any achievement my parents had ever celebrated. But when I told them I wanted to study education, my mother actually laughed. "Teaching? Rebecca, people from families like ours don't become teachers. That's a backup career for people without options." So I'd done what they wanted. Business school, the corporate job, dating the right men, wearing the right clothes, and I was absolutely miserable. The only thing that kept me going was volunteering at schools on weekends, watching kids learn and grow. Then one Saturday, I met a boy named Deshawn. 8 years old, brilliant, curious about everything, but so far behind in reading he was being recommended for special education, not because he couldn't learn, but because nobody had ever really taught him. I spent 12 weeks working with him, and by the end, he was reading at grade level. His teacher cried when she saw his test scores. His mother hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. That's when I knew. I enrolled in a teacher certification program that night, online classes after work. I didn't tell my family. For 8 months, I worked at the firm during the day and studied education at night, barely sleeping, running on coffee, and the growing certainty that I was finally doing something right. When I got my teaching certificate, I applied to schools in low-income areas where teachers were desperately needed. I got offered a position at Riverside Elementary, a Title I school where 80% of kids qualified for free lunch and test scores were among the lowest in the state. I took it. Then I wrote my resignation letter for my father's firm. I told them at Sunday dinner. I'd rehearsed it 100 times, tried to frame it in ways they might understand. I talked about impact and purpose and making a difference. My mother interrupted before I'd even finished. "Absolutely not. I won't allow you to throw your life away like this. Do you know what people will think?" My father's reaction was colder. "You'll make $30,000 a year. You have a degree from a top business school. And you want to babysit other people's children for poverty wages? What did we do wrong raising you?" Marcus laughed. Come on, Becca, this is ridiculous. You're having some quarter-life crisis. Teaching? That's what people do when they can't do anything else. The argument lasted 2 hours. My mother cried, not because she was sad, but because she was angry. My father made threats about cutting me off financially. Marcus made jokes about my little teaching adventure. When I finally stood up to leave, my mother's last words were, "If you do this, don't expect us to pretend we're proud of you. We'll tell people you're taking time off to figure things out. We're not going to be humiliated by this." But I did it anyway. I quit. Ignored my father's furious calls, blocked Marcus's mocking texts, and started teaching 3rd grade that fall. And it was hard. Harder than anything I'd ever done. Kids came with trauma and hunger and learning gaps that seemed impossible to fill. I bought supplies with my own money, stayed late every night, took work home every weekend. My family kept their distance. My mother told people I was exploring options. My father stopped inviting me to family events. Marcus sent one text. "Let me know when you're done playing teacher and want a real job again." They'd essentially erased me from their narrative. But slowly things changed in my classroom. Strategies started working. Kids began to trust me. Test scores improved. By my 2nd year, my class had some of the highest reading growth in the entire district. I'd found something I was actually good at, something that mattered. One of those kids was Jamal. He came to me in 4th grade reading at a 1st grade level, angry at the world, constantly in trouble, convinced he was stupid. His file was thick with disciplinary reports. His mother was in prison. His grandmother was overwhelmed. The school was considering moving him to an alternative program. I refused to give up on him. Every day after school, we worked together. I learned he loved science, was obsessed with how things worked. So I started teaching him to read through science articles and instruction manuals. Slowly, painfully slowly, he started to believe he could actually learn. By the end of the year, he was reading at grade level. By 6th grade, he was in advanced classes. His grandmother cried at his middle school graduation and told me I'd saved his life. Stories like Jamal's started spreading. Parents requested me specifically. The district noticed my students' test scores. Other teachers asked me for strategies. In my 4th year, I was asked to lead professional development workshops. I was building a reputation, but none of it mattered to my family because it wasn't the kind of success they valued. I'd see them occasionally at weddings or funerals. My mother would ask if I was still doing that school thing. My father would introduce me as my daughter who works with children, in a tone that suggested I ran a daycare. Marcus would literally walk past me to talk to cousins I barely knew. But I'd built a life I was proud of. I had Sarah, my fellow teacher and best friend. I had students who hugged me in hallways. I had parents who trusted me. I had purpose. And slowly, I stopped needing my family's approval. Then, in my 5th year, something happened that would change everything. The state launched the Excellence in Education initiative, designed to identify and honor teachers making exceptional impact in high-need schools. Teachers could be nominated by administrators, colleagues, parents, or community members. I didn't know I'd been nominated. My principal, Mrs. Harrison, had submitted my name with portfolios from dozens of students, work samples, growth data, letters from parents, testimonials from kids I'd taught. Even former students had written letters. Kids like Jamal, now teenagers with stories of how I'd changed their trajectories. The first I heard about it was a letter saying I'd been selected as a regional finalist for the Governor's Award for Teaching Excellence. Out of thousands of teachers statewide, I was one of 20 finalists. The letter explained there would be school visits, interviews, more documentation, and final selections would be announced at a ceremony in 4 months. I read that letter 3 times in my empty classroom, hands shaking, tears running down my face. Sarah found me still sitting there an hour later. "You knew?" I asked her. She grinned. "Mrs. Harrison swore me to secrecy, but Becca, you deserve this. Every single kid you've helped, it's all documented now." The next 4 months were intense. Evaluation teams observed my teaching, interviewed students and parents. I submitted lesson plans, assessment data, examples of my strategies. They wanted to see everything: my classroom management, my differentiation methods, my communication with families. I didn't tell my family. What was the point? They'd made it clear they weren't interested in my teaching career. This was my world, my achievement, and they'd forfeited the right to be part of it. 3 months into the evaluation, my mother called. First time in over a year. "Rebecca, your father's company is being featured in Business Weekly, and they're doing a family profile. The journalist asked about you. Just don't mention the teaching thing, all right? Say you're considering options in education consulting, something that sounds more professional." I was stunned. "You want me to lie about my job so you're not embarrassed?" "It's not about embarrassment, Rebecca. It's about image. Just do this one thing for the family." The audacity, that I was selfish for living my own life. "No," I said quietly. "I'm a teacher. That's what I'll tell them. And if you're embarrassed by that, that's your problem." My mother's voice went cold. "Fine. Then don't bother coming to the magazine release party. You've made your choice, and we've made ours." She hung up. I sat there feeling that old familiar hurt, but also something new. Relief. I was done trying to win their approval. Whatever happened with the governor's award, I was finally, completely done seeking validation from people who would never give it. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I got the call. "Ms. Mitchell, you've been selected as one of 5 recipients of this year's Governor's Award for Teaching Excellence. The governor will personally present your award at the state capitol. You're entitled to bring 10 guests." I couldn't breathe. 5 recipients out of thousands of teachers, the highest honor for educators in our state. "Thank you," I managed. "Thank you so much." I called Sarah immediately, barely coherent. Then Mrs. Harrison, who shrieked so loud I had to hold the phone away. Then I made my guest list. Sarah, Mrs. Harrison, fellow teachers, former students including Jamal, his grandmother, some parents who'd believed in me. Nowhere on that list were my parents or brother. They'd made it clear I didn't fit in their world. Why would I invite them into mine? But Sarah said something that changed my mind. "You could invite them and let them see exactly what they dismissed. Let them watch the governor honor you. Let them see the students who love you, the impact you've made. Not because you need their approval, but because they need to see what they missed." I thought about it for 3 days. Part of me wanted to keep them away, to protect this moment from their judgment. But another part wanted them to see, wanted them to understand that success wasn't just corner offices and stock portfolios, so I sent them an email. Simple, factual. "I've been awarded the Governor's Award for Teaching Excellence. The ceremony is next Friday at 7 p.m. at the state capitol. I have guest seats available if you'd like to attend." My mother responded first. "The Governor's Award? For teaching? Is that a real thing?" Then, an hour later, "I suppose we could come. What's the dress code?" My father sent a one-line response. "Send me the details." Marcus didn't respond at all. The week before the ceremony, the local newspaper ran a story about the award winners. They interviewed me at Riverside Elementary, took pictures with students, talked to parents and colleagues. The article captured what teaching in a Title I school was really like. They quoted Jamal. "Ms. Mitchell didn't just teach me to read. She taught me I was worth teaching. She changed my whole life." My mother called the day the article came out. "Rebecca, that newspaper story. People from the club are calling me. They had no idea you were doing such important work. Mrs. Henderson said her daughter is a teacher too. Everyone's talking about it." "And?" I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Well, I suppose we didn't fully understand what you were doing. Your father is very impressed. We'll definitely be at the ceremony." Something in her tone set my teeth on edge. Not pride, not understanding. Calculation. They were coming because other people were impressed and they wanted to be associated with that success. Now that it came with recognition, suddenly my choice was acceptable. "Great," I said flatly. "See you Friday." The day of the ceremony arrived. I wore a simple navy dress, let Sarah do my hair, tried to ignore the nervous flutter in my stomach. The state capitol was massive, marble, and formal. My guests started arriving: Sarah's husband, Mrs. Harrison, my teacher friends, and then my students. Jamal showed up in a suit, so grown up at 15. My current third graders in their best clothes, so excited they could barely contain themselves. Parents who'd trusted me with their children. They filled a whole section of seats. My family arrived 10 minutes before the ceremony started. My mother wore a designer dress and too much jewelry. My father was in an expensive suit, and Marcus looked bored already. They stood awkwardly at the edge of my group, clearly uncomfortable. "Rebecca," my mother said, kissing the air near my cheek. "What a interesting venue. All these people, are they all your students?" "Students, parents, colleagues," I said. "The people who wanted to be here." My father shook my hand, actually shook my hand like I was a business associate. "Congratulations on the award." Marcus barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, congrats. How long is this thing?" Before I could respond, Jamal appeared. "Ms. Mitchell, they said we should get seated. Are these your parents?" He looked at them with open curiosity. "Yes," I said. "Mom, Dad, Marcus, this is Jamal. He was one of my students." Jamal stuck out his hand, polite and confident. "Ms. Mitchell changed my life. I'm in AP classes now, and I'm going to apply to engineering programs next year. None of that would have happened without her." My mother's smile was frozen. My father managed a nod. Marcus finally looked up, clearly surprised. They had no idea what to do with Jamal. We moved into the ceremony hall, a gorgeous room with marble columns and chandeliers. My family sat in the back row of my section, as far from my students as they could get. Everyone else filled in around them. The ceremony began with speeches from the state superintendent and the governor herself, talking about the importance of public education, the dedication of teachers, the future we were building. Then she began presenting awards, calling each recipient to the stage. Then I heard my name, Rebecca Mitchell, 4th grade teacher at Riverside Elementary School. I walked to the stage, legs shaking. The governor smiled warmly. Then she began to read my citation, and the whole room went quiet. "Rebecca Mitchell has taught for 5 years at one of our state's highest need schools. Her students have consistently shown remarkable academic growth, with reading proficiency rates exceeding state averages, despite starting significantly below grade level. But Ms. Mitchell's impact extends far beyond test scores." She paused. The evaluation team interviewed 43 of Ms. Mitchell's former students. Every single one credited her with believing in them when no one else did, with teaching them that their circumstances didn't define their potential. Many are now in advanced classes, on track for college, pursuing dreams they never thought possible. I could feel tears starting. The governor continued. One parent wrote, "Ms. Mitchell taught my son that being poor doesn't mean being stupid. She gave him a future." Another wrote, "My daughter came to Ms. Mitchell's class believing she was worthless. She left knowing she was brilliant. That's not teaching, that's transformation." The governor looked directly at me. Ms. Mitchell represents the very best of public education. She chose to work where she was needed most, not where it was easiest. She invested her own money, her own time, her own heart in student society had already given up on. She has changed lives in ways that will ripple forward for generations. It is my profound honor to present Rebecca Mitchell with the Governor's Award for Teaching Excellence. She placed the medallion around my neck and handed me the crystal trophy. The room erupted in applause. I could see my section on their feet, Sarah crying, Mrs. Harrison beaming, my students cheering, Jamal's grandmother with hands over her heart. And in the back row, my family, my mother's face frozen in shock, my father looking stunned, Marcus staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I gave a brief acceptance speech, thanked my principal and colleagues and students, talked about the privilege of teaching and our responsibility to invest in every child. I kept it together until I mentioned Jamal by name, talked about watching him transform from a struggling reader to a thriving student. Then my voice broke, and when I looked out, I saw him crying too, and half my section was crying with us. When the ceremony ended, people flooded the stage. Parents wanted to talk, other teachers wanted to congratulate me, reporters wanted interviews. The governor spent 10 minutes talking with me, genuinely interested in my strategies and my school. My students surrounded me, so proud and excited. Through the crowd, I caught glimpses of my family. My mother was talking to other parents, probably trying to establish social connections. My father was checking his phone. Marcus was talking to Jamal, looking uncomfortable. Eventually, the crowd thinned. My family approached together, clearly having discussed what they would say. "Rebecca, that was just wonderful," my mother said brightly. "We had no idea you'd accomplish so much. Everyone here is so impressed." "I am," I said simply. My father cleared his throat. "It's quite an honor. Very prestigious. Perhaps you could leverage this into an administrative position, something with better pay. With this recognition, you could probably move into district leadership." I stared at him. Even now, after everything he'd just witnessed, he was trying to reshape my achievement into something he understood. Moving up, making more money, leaving the classroom. "I'm not interested in leaving the classroom," I said. "I'm a teacher. That's what I want to be." Marcus jumped in. "What Dad means is, you've proven yourself now. You could do anything. Education consulting, corporate training. I know some people who run education companies." "I don't want introductions," I said, my voice harder. "I want to teach. I want to work with kids who need me. That's what I told you 5 years ago when you decided I was an embarrassment to the family." Silence. My mother's smile faltered. My father's expression went cold. "Rebecca," my mother said carefully, "we never said you were an embarrassment." "You disowned me," I interrupted quietly. "Not formally, not legally, but you cut me out of your life because my career choice didn't fit your image. You told people I was taking time off instead of admitting I was teaching. You stopped inviting me to family events. You made it clear I was only acceptable if I succeeded on your terms." "That's not fair," my father said stiffly. "We've always wanted the best for you." "No," I said, surprisingly calm. "You wanted what looked best to other people. You wanted me to be successful in ways you could brag about at the country club. And when I chose something you considered beneath us, you pretended I didn't exist. Until tonight. Until the recognition came from someone important enough that you couldn't dismiss it. My mother's face flushed. That's not true. We came tonight to support you. You came because other people were impressed, I said, because the newspaper article made your friends call, because suddenly teaching doesn't sound so embarrassing when there's a governor and a trophy involved. But the work was the same 5 years ago when you told me I was throwing my life away. The only thing that changed was the external validation. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Becca, come on. We're family. Can't we just move past this? We're family, I repeated. You know what family does? They show up. They support you even when they don't understand. They're proud of you for following your passion, not just for achieving things that look good on paper. These people, I gestured to my students and teachers, they're more family to me than you've been in 5 years. Jamal stepped forward, angry on my behalf. Ms. Mitchell is the best teacher I've ever had. She's the reason I'm going to college. She's the reason I believe I can do anything. And you people didn't even know what she was doing. That's messed up. This young man, I said firmly, has accomplished more in 5 years than Marcus did in all of high school, despite having 1/10 of the advantages. This young man knows more about hard work and determination than anyone in our family, and he's shown me more respect than my actual family has in years. My father's jaw tightened. I think we should continue this privately. No, I said. I think we're done. You came, you saw the ceremony, you can tell your friends you were there. But don't pretend this changes anything. Don't pretend you suddenly understand or approve. You wanted me to be something I'm not, and when I chose to be myself, you cut me out. That was your choice, and you don't get to undo it now just because it's convenient. My mother's eyes welled with tears. Rebecca, please, we're your parents. We love you. Do you? I asked genuinely. Do you love me or the version of me that fits your expectations? Because the person I actually am, the teacher who works with struggling kids, who spends her own money on supplies and her own heart believing in children everyone else has given up on, you've made it very clear you don't have room for her. Nobody knew what to say. Finally, my father straightened his jacket, his face hard. When you're ready to have a mature conversation, you can call us. We'll be going now. They left, my mother glancing back once. I watched them go and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just peaceful certainty that I'd said what needed to be said. Sarah appeared immediately. You okay? Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I really am. Mrs. Harrison joined us, looking fierce. Those people have no idea what they missed. You are making a difference in ways they will never understand. Jamal's grandmother hugged me tight. Baby girl, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see you for who you really are. You've got family. You've got all of us. And looking around at the people still there, Sarah, Mrs. Harrison, Jamal, my students and their parents, I realized she was right. I'd built a family from shared purpose and genuine care. The next weeks were strange. My family didn't contact me, and I didn't reach out. The award opened doors, speaking at conferences, mentoring new teachers, developing professional programs. The prize money went into my classroom. Life moved forward. Then, about 6 weeks later, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was different, smaller, uncertain. Rebecca, it's Mom. I've been thinking about what you said at the ceremony, and you were right. We were proud of the award because other people were impressed, not because we understood what it meant. I've been talking to Mrs. Henderson's daughter who teaches, and she's been explaining what teachers actually do. I didn't know, Rebecca. I didn't understand. Could we maybe have coffee? I want to understand, really understand. Not the award, but the actual work, why it matters to you. I listened 3 times, analyzing every word, looking for manipulation. But it sounded genuine, genuinely uncertain, genuinely humble, genuinely interested. I didn't call back immediately. I sat with it for a week, talked it through with Sarah, Mrs. Harrison, Jamal's grandmother. People can change, she told me. Not always, but sometimes. The question is whether you're willing to let her try. Eventually, I called my mother back. We met for coffee, both awkward and careful. She asked real questions about my work, my students, what a typical day looked like, what challenges I faced. She listened, actually listened. She told me about talking to Mrs. Henderson's daughter, about realizing how dismissive she'd been. I was wrong, she said finally. I was wrong about teaching, about your choice, about what matters. I let my own insecurities and need for status blind me to what you were accomplishing. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. It wasn't enough to fix 5 years of rejection. It wasn't enough to undo the hurt. But it was a start. A genuine, honest start. My relationship with my mother slowly rebuilt. She started visiting my classroom, seeing the work firsthand. She met my students, heard their stories. She donated to our school's library fund, not for recognition, but because she was starting to understand what we needed. She attended my students' events, science fairs, and graduation ceremonies, sitting beside parents she would never have spoken to in her old life. It took time. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal quickly. But slowly, carefully, we built something new. Not the relationship we'd had before, but something more honest, based on who I actually am, rather than who she wanted me to be. The real revenge wasn't the award, though that was satisfying. The real revenge was building a life so meaningful that their dismissal couldn't touch it. The real revenge was proving that success isn't measured in salary or status, but in lives changed and potential unlocked. I'm still teaching at Riverside Elementary. I'm starting my 10th year this fall. My classroom is full of books and evidence of learning and transformation. My days are exhausting, frustrating, and impossibly rewarding. Jamal is starting his sophomore year of college, studying mechanical engineering, still sending me texts about his life. Maria, the girl who started this whole journey, just finished her teaching certification. She's going to teach 2nd grade in a school like Riverside. We have coffee once a month, and she tells me I inspired her. I have students who struggle and students who soar. I have colleagues who challenge me, administrators who trust me, parents who believe in me. I have a community built on shared purpose and the revolutionary belief that every child deserves someone who sees their potential. My mother came to my classroom last week, watched me teach, saw me redirect behavior and celebrate victories. Afterward, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm proud of you. Not because of the award, but because of this. What you do every day. I'm proud of you." It was what I'd wanted to hear my whole life, and now that I finally heard it, I realized I didn't need it anymore. It was nice, and it meant something that she'd done the work to understand. But I didn't need her pride to know my work mattered. I had the evidence every day, in kids eager to learn, in parents who trusted me, in former students who came back to tell me I'd changed their lives. That night, I stood in my empty classroom after school, looking at the quote over my desk. "They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel." My parents had taught me to measure success in money and status, but they'd been wrong. Success is Jamal in AP classes. Success is Maria becoming a teacher. Success is countless kids who walked into my classroom believing they were worthless and walked out knowing they were capable and valuable and full of potential. That's the revenge, proving that the life they dismissed was actually the most purposeful thing I could have done. Building something so meaningful that their approval became irrelevant, becoming so completely, authentically myself that their rejection couldn't diminish me. The governor called my name in front of hundreds of people, yes. But the real victory was quieter. It was every single day I chose this work. Every kid I helped, every life I touched, every stubborn act of believing in human potential when society had given up. My parents disowned me for being a teacher, and I became the best teacher I could be anyway, not despite their rejection, but with complete indifference to it, building a legacy that will outlast any corner office or stock portfolio. They wanted me to be someone important. Instead, I became someone important to people who actually mattered. Kids who needed someone to believe in them, families who needed someone to see their children's worth, a community that needed someone to show up and stay. That's not revenge. That's revolution. And it's the best life I could have imagined.